All right, welcome everybody to the February 2018 webinar edition of ForecastBuilder, and actually I have quite a bit of stuff in this talk to go through since it's been a couple months here since the last webinar. And we've certainly had a few winter weather events since then. First, I wanted to give a thank you to everyone here. We've been seeing plenty of feedback for the ForecastBuilder process, as well as making blends better. This is not just from Central Region. We've had some good input from both Western Region, Southern Region, as well as some Eastern Region offices. So just keep that feedback coming. I'm hoping that everybody, as you see this feedback coming in and get these updates coming out for the ForecastBuilder installs, that you'll see some more positive results coming out of that. Some feedback areas just noted there: SnowRatio, blowing snow, wind, the actual GUI interface for ForecastBuilder. And some of these I'll actually talk about today. And then the top-down approach, I know a couple people have been even looking into that a little bit more. Now I actually have got a lot of, understanding of how the process works, and now I want to even make it better. So I think this is just, that excellent crowdsourced development, how to improve things. So let's keep that going. The topics for today's webinar. Obviously, like I always like to do this, recent weather events, how things have been looking, some changes, talk about Canadian model briefly, some updates with SnowRatio and blowing snow coming down the pipe, talk about RTMA a little bit, weather projects, kind of currently in progress, and Q&A time at the end. All right, so here eventually, there it goes. Looking at some recent events here. Now, 2 months ago for this one, back in early December. This is interesting. You have actually some pretty good agreement between WPC and NDFD here for this forecast for this event. But the actual event, it completely, for a good chunk of northern Minnesota, kind of missed the system, almost kind of a, split framework where you had bigger snowfall event over Grand Forks area, and then more over northwest Wisconsin and western UP. So, I think to this one, you're kind of somewhat at the mercy of the models. This was only, 48 hours, probably, 48 hours from the event, and you end up with this. So, sometimes you miss it, but despite not on the snow end, but the wind side of this, did a pretty good job with this. And I wanted to show this to give you kind of a flavor. The NDFD in the upper left, the version 3 of the NDM in the upper right, the RTMA observed stuff in the bottom left, and then the next version of the NDM 3.1 in the lower right. So just looking at wind gusts and seeing how things matched up, and even to look at the RTMA, and you can see maybe RTMA, the little more mesoscale effects that you might have at more of your mesonet site versus all the ASOS, AWOS, very, very much exposed airports, and even differences in elevation with respect to the anemometers that you get between the ASOS and the MEDIS, mesonet site. Then let's go a little bit farther out in time here. Let this image cross. Look at the wind gusts, and you do see a nice improvement there across on Lake Superior from with NDFD compared to the looking at the RTMA for observed. I mean, the NDF, even just the NDM alone, definitely does hint at a big wind signature going across Lake Superior and even into northern Lake Michigan. So that's good to see when we as you switch over to NBM, that it's picking up on some of these high wind events. Are they high enough? Maybe not, but at least it's giving you that signal of a significant wind deal. Fast forward here to January 21st, 22nd, that somewhat narrow band of heavy snow and blizzard conditions that were observed back in Nebraska into southwest Minnesota and that, and lined up pretty well there, comparing NDFD WPC into the actual observed. I know this was a tricky forecast leading into it because of where this band was actually going to set up, and I'll go into actual the NDM look here in a minute. with that, and you'll see the trickiness. Didn't want to touch on the ice aspect of it because there was an ice issue with it, a combination of some warm nose and some dry slot taking place to help produce the ice. And I did pull out of the Gaylord office. Here's some of the freeze and rain reports, and a few pockets of some heavier icing there noted near Petoskey, but otherwise, general winter weather advisory, and a nice image there from a tree in Gaylord, Michigan there, all covered in ice from this event. So about 5 days prior to this event, here was kind of a look from the NBM version 3.1, which has snow and ice accumulation in it. And you can see the axis of the heavy snow was progged there from Sioux Falls up to Duluth and through the western UP, with that icing area also, as you would expect, a little farther north, and comparison observed, a little bit farther, a little too far north, but do know that as time went on, the models did shift south, and so here's another one of those that, again, this is almost a 5-day forecast, so it's nice to see. I mean, it's picking up on a heavy snow band, certainly where the location is, but you can get some messaging out here to your partners, and there's a heavy snow potential here. Show you how it looks on NBM. NBM version 3.1 produces a predominant weather, and in the lower right there, see the image that popped up to show you. It's using the same technique that we have in ForecastBuilder for weather creation. Similarly, I mean, the snow and ice also has the same technique, so you can see how that output looked for the system. And since we've got another winter weather event, just not so much the snow side, pick up the ice side down in here for tomorrow and tomorrow night. Well, a lot of ice issue going, and even some warm nose, although it looks like the loss of ice may be a bigger contributor to this icing going up I-44 into the Ohio Valley. Back on that 21st, 22nd event, happened to get this looked at the email, and I think this is good topic to discuss. Was just take this from a science perspective with utilizing blends. And in quotes here, basically, on the warm side of your deformation, the blends can't produce too broad of gradient QPF and prob ice present, and the result of that will end up being an over forecast of ice. So this is where you get an area you might want to do a little work to both QPF and prob ice present. And really, this whole thing is all about model spread. Higher QPF from members, that they have a band further south, and then you superimpose them on top of members that have lower prob ice present, having band further north. So you just have to kind of deal with these and try and get in there and, adjust the QPF and prob ice present accordingly to the synoptic situation. And this is like, this was a high impact event, so this would be an area that you would probably be normally focused in on these grids anyway. And another outcome from this event, the 21st, 22nd, just an FYI, is dual pole CC data. Just keep an eye on that because, it can be helpful in certain rain snow situations. You think along an ESPF perspective, and utilize this to help you with where you want to line that snow rain up in your forecast. I know there's been discussions in the past about the Canadian model. I know we've got it fairly well in the Central Region here, fairly well stabilized on the Central Region LDM, thanks to a variety of different updates going on. But I know there's discussion about why do we need it in the blend. It seems to be one of the worst kind of lower performer models. And a lot of this goes into a topic about ensemble dispersion. If for those that may went to the AMS or not, just bring this up, there were a few talks mentioning about how our ensemble systems, the GEFs, even the NAVE, even the ECs end up being under dispersive, where the solution resides outside of the ensemble envelope. So that's at least one good reason to at least get some other guidance in there. I thought too, I've been reading some numerous AFDs even going back to that 21st, 22nd storm, where that Canadian was either a split between the European or GFS or leaned toward one of those models. So to some degree, in some situations, Canadian can give you another weighting towards the EC or another weighting towards the GFS. So it does seem to, it can help your blends in that regard, or I guess hurt. Going to the NBM, when it comes to the top about ensemble dispersion, there's a lot more models and ensembles going into it than what we have in super blend. So there's better ability to capture solution. Obviously, I go back to the previous slide about QPF and Prop Ice President. One of the issues when you have certainly a lot more models coming in, you can blend out certain, higher, some higher events, if not all the guidance is in agreement. So just recognize that issue. A little topic on road temperatures. Sunday, January 7th, right before the AMS conference, or right at the beginning of it, there was an event coming across Missouri and eventually made its way all the way across to the East Coast. A lot of winter weather advisories issued for some freeze and rain, sleet. But this event also had a situation where your rain was going to fall and road temps were lagging and resulting in potential icing on roadways. And so a couple of forecast discussions noted on that. And even me personally, I remember that morning, before I headed out to the airport, it was raining at like 34, 35, and my sidewalks and my driveway were all iced up, just because they were so cold leading into it. So some of the updates here with this release of ForecastBuilder, which came out on February 1st. Some stuff on blowing snow here, fairly minor, but I know we've run into this issue of where people want to do blowing snow in the extended, like for that 21st, 22nd event. No snow melt grids out there, you would get an error. So that's been resolved. You use SuperBlend for just some kind of a proxy for snow amount. Feedback about moving the wind gust regression came into being at the start of population, not during the integrity check, because it can sometimes, during the integrity check, you're like, what, I adjusted the gusts down and now they're bumped back up. That's not what I wanted. So that's been adjusted. Stopping the double population of MBM data, that actually caused some problems. So that's been fixed. The GUI stuff around the top down, and then because there's lots of grids with Hazard Builder, we made a change in there. So they only create grids if they have different value. So that will help with ISC traffic. Something that's a little bit outside of out of ForecastBuilder is we'll talk a little about SnowRatio. We had a good amount of feedback during the first Arctic Airmasses that came down, especially here at the beginning, end of December and early January, about SnowRatios being too high. And I thought, going back to the SnowRatio training, to give you a little reminder here that there's a blend of methods for each model that takes place. It depends upon what the model has. For example, we have vertical motion from the RAF, the NAM, the GFS, so we can use it for the COB, or we can use the COB method for those. But for the Canadian, we don't have vertical motion, so you can't use it for that. Just an idea about these blending methods that are taking place. That max T loss method in particular, if you look at the curve I have here on the right, and when it'll pop up here in a moment up for your screen, you'll notice that as temperatures decrease, the SnowRatio just keeps going up and up and up. And that is a problem because if you just look at a simple, the chart for your various snow crystal types, you go down to generally a lower SnowRatio environment as you get colder than -20 centigrade. So we had there's a group from across the Weather Service that worked on SnowRatio for the National SmartNet and also put it in for the National Blend of Models. One of the members on there did some research about max law versus SnowRatio in Alaska, and you see that where you kind of have that nice peak as you'd expect around the dendritic growth zone, the SnowRatio, and then it goes, drops back down. And so we made a change here to the SnowRatio curve in the bottom right, and the next national blend of models version as well as the next SmartNet version will contain this adjustment. And I thought I would do a little before and after image here. On the left was from February 2nd, at least a Prague forecast. Again, this is like a 6-day forecast from the GFS, having an Arctic Airmass across the northern plains. Before, in the NBM in the upper right, this is version 3, you can see the higher ratios that were Prague. Now that we made that switch for version 3.1, you can see it caps it at 20, and even those may be still a little higher, but at least it's much closer to reality for that kind of situation. In the aviation area, there's going to be a new enhanced aviation package produced by GSD. It's got a lot of Century input in there, but I want to note that there's going to be new aviation populated and aviation finalized procedures with that. Those are expected to be released soon, maybe even this month. There's various integrity checks within that aviation finalized, and those have been included in ForecastBuilder. So if you have the aviation turned on for ForecastBuilder, all those same checks are going to be in place, and those checks occur between the non-precip type and weather creation. Blowing snow, another area where there's been a decent amount of feedback about the issue with patchy blowing snow. We have a group from the Northern Plains, the Sioux community, working on blowing snow updates. And again, a lot of issues or feedback received about where patchy blowing snow is occurring, where there's no snow on the ground. So not with this ForecastBuilder update, but the next one, which might even come out here in a couple weeks, will contain an update to blowing snow, and we're going to utilize a few new things for this, and there's going to be a lot more coming with it anyway. Let me jump right to it. We're going to utilize the no-risk snow depth analysis as a first guess, and the past 7 days of observed temperature to come up with what's considered blowable. Forecasters will have the ability to adjust this snow depth, so we're not just going to blindly follow this. You actually can go in there and adjust, because sometimes the no-risk may not be able to capture what's changed correctly. You want to have at least some ability to adjust that. And then in the future, or for the future, the snowpack will get modified based on the forecast temperature and snowfall. So keeping track of what snow can drift and blow. So let's take an example of this from the Bismarck office. On the left is your no-risk analysis of snow depth, 12Z on the January 26th. And here's the resultant snow depth grid on the right of what's considered the blowable portion, blowable pack. Continue on, take a look on the left now, you'll see a wind grid, and just mainly in that 16 to 20 knot range. And remember, the 17 knot threshold is what kicks off patchy blowing snow. Again, that 17 knot is to kind of consider both a patchy blowing snow aspect and drifting snow. We don't really have a drifting in the weather grid per se, but drifting is an impact. So we just kick that off with patchy blowing snow. And on the right, you'll see now the restricted area for patchy blowing snow. In the past, it would have been pretty much anywhere that had that 17 knot threshold. Now it's, we're utilizing the no-risk snow, other data to come up with where you can actually blow the snow. And better yet, on the next slide here, once it advances, we can actually do an observed comparison. There was some blowing snow on some roadways there in north central North Dakota there, and interesting saying reported scattered blowing snow. And there's no ASOS or AWOS reported visibility restriction, but one of the DOT places reported it. So it's good to see at least this come to truth. Well, a reminder here, since the next ForecastBuilder webinar may not be until probably April timeframe, I wanted to talk a little bit about the computation of POP, and this is just a reminder. I think I mentioned it last time. In the warm season for SuperBlend, April 1st to October 1st, for those utilizing SuperBlend, it's based on QPF. But then during the cool season, which and what we're in right now, we use two methods. The maximum of that, pop based on QPF, and a neighborhood pop technique based on number of points greater than or equal to 300. So right now, during the cool season, when QPF is easier, light QPF is easier to come by, you often end up having a pop that's closer to the neighborhood coming out of superblend. In conshort, neighborhood pop is utilized year-round. That was found after looking at how convection pans out for conshort and versus convection for superblend. It works better in conshort than it does in superblend for whatever reason. In the NBM, you've got a couple different techniques being utilized here. There's an actual technique they call it the Tom Hamill technique based off of Tom Hamill created it. And I think there might be a little bit in some of the NBM documentation. Winds and wind gusts. We've actually had quite a bit of feedback here too, especially across the plains and into some of our typical high wind prone areas. So for superblend only, the wind computation is changing. We're going, and this comes with this recent release of ForecastBuilder on February 1st. We're going to go to 60% consol, 15% previous, 15% bias corrected consol, and 10% WPC guide. And a lot of this is because the feedback said that a lot of people were often going towards the consol, consmos situation, and really the bias correction here was hurting the forecast. This change should help increase winds and gusts across the plains, and thus helping with any digital aviation in those areas, as well as improved messaging for the high wind event. But it could have a negative impact in higher winds over forested areas. The Central Region Grid Methodology team will be watching this closely if we need to make any further adjustments to this. If this area becomes extremely problematic, we'll make an adjustment. Something that this kind of corresponds more with some of the projects being worked on is this tool called Make Sure. This will probably come in the next ForecastBuilder release. Oh yeah, it will come. The ability to basically, quote unquote, make sure your forecast, the tool to make sure it's as high or as low or within a model, a group of models, or a distribution. So a little statistical analysis here going into play to help with your, if you want to compare your model or your forecast with a bunch of models. And just a little preview of what the tool looks like. On the left, so you would start with, you can choose again make sure your grid is at least high as or low as or within. And then again, you can choose your model, how I configure that, but then there's that option down at the bottom called by distribution. And if you click that, you get all these neat statistical thresholds that you can do, so you can make sure your forecast is within the 75th percentile of all the guidance, and go into there, or within some amount of standard deviation from the guidance. So some neat little, again, statistical things you can do. Along the RTMA lines, some news here. Well, at AMS, they noted a couple talks about cold pools and valleys. I know that's been put on their threads, and just since RTMA you can use as an initial analysis for ForecastBuilder, I wanted to bring this up. That fix for the cold pools and valleys will be put into the next RTMA upgrade, which unfortunately is not till the fall, but note that is in there. One thing that is already in place now is a blacklist option. So if you happen to have sites that you know have persistent issues, maybe it's one sensor or maybe the entire site, you can blacklist them from the RTMA. Your SU or DOH will be the point of contact. So feed your information through them. And finally, here's some ongoing projects with ForecastBuilder, incorporation of fire weather parameters. We've got both the Pueblo and Bismarck offices working on that. There's some joint activity to some degree with the national blend as well, so it'll be some similar techniques. A new ForecastBuilder GUI design and options coming in play, then we've got work started there already. Probability of severe tool for ForecastBuilder. I'm going to try and get this in with the next update. And severe weather is not too far away. That's courtesy of the Bismarck office. Missoula has been working on some road temperature grid analysis, so that's kind of neat, using some of the metro road forecast information, DOT information. Continued DAS improvements and support associated with DAS rollout. I have an idea a little bit to handle some of the diurnal queue stuff. We'll be working on that. Diurnal temperature has got, there's some issues with small temperature ranges because we forced the diurnal curve to try and reach the max and min. So we're further investigating that. Some of that feedback has come up here as of late. So that project's ongoing. Another thing coming out of Missoula is a concept called edit retention. And this is specifically helpful for maintaining local effect information, things that really, that are really struggling to blend. Maybe you're dealing with some valley fog situation or valley cold pools that, the blend can't handle any other kind of specific local effects. You can use this software to help with that. So we're working on building that into ForecastBuilder, and a couple offices are currently testing that out. And just to repeat what I said there, that really the whole concept behind edit retention would be really just saving those areas that you would affect the message of the forecast. Again, targeted approach for local effects. The actual software is cool that will actually compare your starting point with what's already being saved and restrict that edit area. More on that as will come in the future. With that, we'll open the lines for feedback here. Are there any questions?
So it does look like we've got a couple of questions, or at least one. Looks like Jeff Hova said, will the change was made to improve the wind gust forecast also tweak the wind forecast? He's asking because the office there's notice the super boom wind forecasts are too low.
Yes, that is correct. The winds both the winds and the wind gusts will be changed. Any other questions out there?
That change of the wind will be something the SUs will want to be sure they communicate to their forecasters to make sure they know that change is taking place, so they're not making some systematic adjustments, assuming that there still is a somewhat low bias.
Yeah, good point. Thanks. And that was Bruce back here at SSD, Chief SSD in Central Region. So thank you for reminding me about that.
So if you have a question, just either type it into the question box or raise your hand and I can unmute you here.
Yeah, so there will be definitely in the next release of ForecastBuilder will be quite a few more tool updates and that going into play, so be aware of that.
Here's a couple more questions here. Yep. So Rob Cox was asking, how does the observed temperature affect what is blowable snow?
Especially if you have temperatures like 30, let's say that 34, 35 or so, the algorithm is going to start reducing the amount of that snow, kind of the idea of crusting it over, developing a better pack. There's going to be the Northern Plains Sioux group will have some more documentation too about this change and all that comes in.
We got one more question here so far. This is from Greg Patrick. It says, if forecasters are not satisfied with the snow ratio output from the ForecastBuilder, what's the best way to correct to make it more realistic?
Yeah, for the snow ratio output, it's a great question. Take a heavy snow band that you're looking to that's going to set up where you got strong furnagenesis impacting the over the dendritic growth zone that's 100 millibars or some more deep. I think you can take a look at one of the good methods. I think look at Cobb output, take a look at what it's got, And then I think you do a lot of your typical coordination with maybe your neighbors and maybe even WPC. Get their take about making that adjustment to your SnowRatio grids to highlight maybe that heavy band, or maybe it's vice versa, that the guidance is too high. There's actually in the ForecastBuilder training, there's some good training about SnowRatio in there too. You can always take a look back at that.
You don't have any other questions right now? Okay.
Nothing. Raise your hand, anybody? All right. With that, be looking towards the April timeframe for another ForecastBuilder webinar. We'll start to make our shift towards looking at probably Thunder and that, which I know still has some work there. So we'll be looking more at that here over the coming months, and be looking too for another ForecastBuilder update here within a month or so. Thanks all.